You bet. That's good to go. All right, welcome everybody to the 1:30 Board of County Commissioners Workshop. Would you all please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, since I see one face in the room, I'm going to start with IT. Mr. McClain, we're going to move around on this agenda just a little bit, but it is on the agenda, so you will be number one.
And it'll be really quick and painless. I don't have a lot because I've been working on budget stuff mostly. We're in the process of deploying some new software to help us in the IT department and getting rid of some old, so kind of fighting through that right now. But mostly that's about it, just doing that and doing our thing. We had about, this year so far, 1,600 help desk tickets. And it sounds like a lot, but
What do most of those entail? I mean, what?
well, it runs the gamut. I forgot my password, my printer's stuck, my scanner don't work. You know, it just runs the gamut. Most of it's pretty easy. It's just annoying because there's a lot of it.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes with just three of us, 1,500 tickets, it's hard to keep up with, but we get her done.
What percentage of those tickets come from me?
Believe it or not, probably a quarter percent. Seriously.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
I feel like I'm a heavy user.
that's not even counting what we like to call drive-by tickets. Those people that don't understand how to use the help desk still yet after this many years. So they'll call us, text us, you know, those kind of things. So there's probably closer to 2,200 if you added all that in. Got a few over the 4th, landfill. I didn't even know they were open.
So on the budgetary stuff that you're talking about too, which we'll get to that obviously later, but how many, or do you even have a number of how many of the old software systems that we're using that we can get rid of because of some of the new software that we've purchased and that we're using now?
Well, most of it has already been streamlined into that. The one that's changing the biggest is for us, for IT. So currently we have a separate help desk system, which is not cheap. Then we have a different system for remote software and antivirus and all that. Separate one for malware detection. They all add up, and this is streamlined. And nearest I can figure, it'll save about $13,000 a year, roughly off my budget, just for that, because I'm putting it under one dashboard, which will make it easier for us to manage the whole thing. But the rest of them, we've pretty much gotten rid of what we don't need. Unfortunately, it's part of the, it's the biggest chunk for me.
Sure. Yeah, that's a big budget.
And obviously, with seeing how things go forward next year, we'll see how that plays out on my side, because almost 300,000 of that is on the sheriff's office. And probably just a little shy of 2 is on our end.
Okay.
So,
All right. Question?
No.
Okay.
thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jim.
All right, Dustin. I see Dustin walked in the room. I know he has some things that he wants to go over here with us. So building and maintenance, or buildings and grounds next.
Afternoon. How are
Good
you?
afternoon.
We're gonna go over the 3 quotes I have for HVAC first.
Sure.
Alright, so I got a quote from Subcooled for it's the unit over the clerk's office. The compressor blew up. It was slated for replacement anyhow. I just don't have all my quotes in for the other 2 units that I was planning on replacing this year today. So I'll have to come back next week. with
Okay.
those. So,
Yeah, and that's fine. Anytime you need to do that, you can obviously come back any workshop. So these are just for the clerk's office. This is the one that we had the issue with, what,
Yeah.
2 weeks ago,
Yeah,
a
and
week
the
ago,
fire
when they
department
shut down
came and
the,
all that. Yeah.
shut down the building?
The one from Subcooled is actually like a heat pump, and that emergency heat is actually what would probably be making heat most of the winter because of the way that's set up, and that's the only thing he could get from his supplier. So to me, that's not really a viable option, because it'll only make, the heat pump itself will only make heat till like, I believe it was 20 degrees, and then after, it was either 20 or 0, and then after that, it would have to be on heat, or electric heat.
Hmm. So it's not really an HVAC unit at all?
No. And then the price difference between RABL and Winair is pretty
100%.
substantial.
Yeah.
So. And with the Winair one, I will have a $350 charge for a boom truck to put it on. And we'll do it in-house, but that's the only difference, I guess. Which is still, it's not terrible.
Yeah.
And the numbers I have for my other ones, the way it's looking, I can probably swing a 4th unit this year with what we have in the, set aside in the budget.
So, I think I've asked you this before, Dustin, but are these like on a 20-year replacement, or
Yeah.
what did we ever decide, or are they even
Well,
lasting that long, 10-year?
The research that I did, it said 18 to 20 years was the life expectancy of the RTU. We have a lot of them that are right around there, so we're just trying to pick the worst ones right at the moment and get it to where we're on an even keel, I guess, and just keep moving forward from there.
Okay. So then, I guess, basically, you were recommending doing it yourself, just buying it from Winair?
Yeah, that's my recommendation.
And then just hire the boom truck
Yeah.
and get what you need? Okay. Questions?
No. I think we need to
Okay.
hurry up and get this done so the cows over there can get cooled off.
All right.
And then in
Is
other-
that unit available?
They said it was in stock, and the curb adapter was 7 to 10 days out, I believe, is what it said.
And that's in Grand Junction?
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
On other business, we did our HVAC filter changes, had the backflow test done. The one at the sheriff's department, I had to order a valve for, and it's 14 weeks out because they wouldn't shut all the way off. So I spoke with the city, and since we're actively trying to get a valve, they're fine with it for now. We had our elevator inspections. Something went on with the TK elevator that does our service, and they dropped the ball on bringing the weights to test the hydraulic elevator, so that's been postponed for now until they can get up here and reschedule with the inspector. We're still working on that generator grant. I've walked through tomorrow, and then bids are due next week on that. If we get enough bids, hopefully this time, that we can award it. Last time we only had one bid for just supplying generators, no installation. So we had to send it back out again. And then we changed that water heater out for the jail kitchen. That was one of the other projects. The other one's gonna need to be replaced. We spoke about that during our budget meeting.
Yeah, were those 100-gallon water heaters?
Yeah.
Yeah, the big
Natural-
ones.
Natural gas, yeah.
Yeah. Okay,
Big guy.
all right, questions?
No.
All right. If they're approaching 18 years, start
Yeah.
doing everything you can to get them off, because they're gonna fall apart.
Yeah.
Okay, all right, thanks, Dustin.
Thanks,
you.
Dustin.
All right. if I didn't say it, we're gonna go past the clerk and recorder totally today. She's still busy in the tabulation process over there, so we're gonna give her a pass for today. Vehicle maintenance, Mr. Higman, you're next. And you're here in the room.
So I guess I don't really have a lot. The major thing was these vehicles by mid next week will be on public surplus, this list. That's everything that's back there by the golf course. So they will be up for auction on that publicsurplus.com next week by Wednesday. Give me till Wednesday. The only other things were the brand new bus. I don't know if you'd heard about that, got T-boned. So
Got hit.
we're dealing with the insurance companies to try to figure out if that's totaled or if they're gonna fix it. Most of the time I can just do a computer generated, take pictures, send it to them, but they wanted to send an adjuster for this one. So we're waiting on the adjuster to show up to figure that.
Because it was brand new.
1,700 miles, yeah. So, other than that, just the norm.
So now it's slightly used?
Yeah, slightly used with a big dent.
Yeah.
I think the worst problem is that all the airbags went off, so.
Mhm.
Well, happens. But this was the big thing, getting this list in front of the public to show what we're gonna have on that auction.
There's a lot of them too.
a
23?
lot.
Okay, question.
No.
All right,
Thank you.
very good, thank you, Shane. We will jump down to Nolan then, GIS.
Okay, well, Doug, let me go grab some stuff real quick and just, I can go ahead and start on this.
Well, that's okay, I can,
Yeah,
if you want a minute, I'll just jump down to, I'll jump down to Rob. So, we're great.
So this is another contract like we talked about last week for the paving. This is for crushing. It's the same similar cost share program with the Schedule A agreements that we do. I sent this over for review last week. So going over a few things today, we do hold a mineral material free use permit with the Forest Service on these pits. This is the Ormiston pit and the Beaver Rim pit. And we operate under the Colorado Division of Mine and Safety for our work up there. The Forest Service kind of stays out of that part. They want to do this so they can provide gravel for the Forest Service and the Montezuma County jurisdictional roads throughout Montezuma County mostly. I'm not going to say they won't use a little bit in Dolores County with their logging and stuff that's going on, but this is really focused on Montezuma County and all the roads that we have in the forest, which includes everything from north of Dolores all the way around to Mancos and all that too. So it'll be for all of their roads. It coincides with our agreement, so they want to do it as a 5-year plan, just like we did with the asphalt. This contract is for $249,990 or 41,665 ton, but that's maybe not, it won't be this year, we've already done one. So it might be 25, 26, might be 2 of them in 27. It's kind of as need basis, rather than trying to scramble to get money 3 years from now and try to get gravel to do some more logging roads up there or whatever they're doing. They got 5 years now to make these plans come together. So it works just like the asphalt. It works real well for us too. And it don't put us on the spot to try to do a whole bunch of crushing in 1 year when we're trying to take care of our own business. You know? So I like that. And another reason is that they can produce the stock, they can reproduce the gravel as they need it and not put a lot of stockpile out there and then let it set for years, waiting for it to get used on a different part of the job, you know, or a different part of the forest. So it's a good deal. It works for me. It works for the road department, I should say, to do it this way rather than just every year see what they've got and go from there.
So, I mean, I don't really have any questions or issues with the contract, and if they're trying to get that I mean, they do actually have a lot of gravel roads up there.
They do, and they're trying to fix a lot of them, you know, with this. So. And you know, I don't know what was going on with the logging industry, but it slowed down. There was some kind of discrepancy or disagreements with them. And they've got all that settled, and now they're going to start hauling. And they plan on hauling out of Beaver Rim starting in August, from what I was told, to start doing that Boggy Draw Road and get all that done. So things are going to start moving now that was held up with some sort of litigation that was going on.
So this is obviously in addition to the 8% that we have to crush for them, just for the,
Yes.
for our
For
agreement that we have for the pit.
on our master agreement with the pits.
Yeah, this is just,
It's a good question. Yes, we still have to do the 8%
The
under our master
8%.
agreement for whatever I use. If I use 20,000, I got to give them 8% of my
Correct.
20. So,
yeah, for a total of 100,000 for the 5 years.
right,
Yeah,
right.
okay.
So-
So, do they know where they're, because you can use it out of either pit, right?
Well, it's either pit. I think they would like to see me back in Beaver Rim. Personally, I think that's kind of the direction they're leaning, but there's no room yet. So we've had to hold them off till they haul out of there, which if they do get started in August, that's going to put us too late in the fall to come out of that pit. It's just too muddy and messy in there. So it would be a spring job for next year, so it would be a 2025 contract. And I'm sure this will probably be what that's for. But again, they might change their mind and come out of out of Ormiston. It's either or, so.
So they can,
That's why why I like it and why they like it is because they can be flexible. They can go where the need is without having to change a bunch of contracts and go to all this again to do that kind of stuff, so.
question,
No. Pretty easy.
okay.
Also, paint striping this year, the prices are going well over the 50,000 limit for what we've been doing before because of cost of doing business. There's only 2 of them. Do you want to do a sealed bid? Or do you want me to use the 2 quotes I get from the 2 I get quotes from every year and, present it to you that way?
If it's over $50,000, I think we have to.
It hasn't been, but it is now. It's creeping up there. It's just the cost of paint. It's
Yeah,
cost of
no, I
doing
know.
business.
Paint-
There's only 2 of them, so.
Paint
yeah.
went way up when
Yeah,
it all
oh, man.
froze
Yeah.
2 years ago.
Yep, so it's one of them contract things that we've never had to do that with, and I totally understand the procurement procedure on it, but it's one of them things where we got 2 that we get bids from, and that's the only 2 around that'll do it, so. I mean, they're gonna get the same price whether I do a sealed or not, so.
Yeah, I think just to
Yeah.
follow the policy,
Yeah,
I
we
think
have
we
to have a
should.
sealed bid for 50,000 or more.
So, but apparently I'm supposed to ask if I can do a sealed bid, so, do you want me to do a sealed bid?
Yeah.
Okay, that's all I need, and I'll get that
Yeah.
put together, so, okay. You'll sign this?
Mañana.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah.
That's it.
Thanks, Rob.
You're welcome. Any questions?
Not right now.
Okay.
I think we asked them all for this, so.
I haven't seen my emails in the last hour, but hopefully we got our asphalt one signed today by the Forest Service, and we can proceed with that little show next week, starting Monday, is what our goal is. So we're on the move with that one, so.
Good.
So, good, all right,
Sounds
thanks.
good. Did they ever get those signs illuminated that we got put up?
Sure.
Sure?
No.
'Cause
No, I'm not sure.
Would you find out, or I can call Tom too? I'll call him.
They've got
never
all the
mind.
stuff. They've got all the technical stuff, the books. It's a cell phone command thing, and they were gonna take care of it. But I went up there a couple of times in the winter, and I didn't see them flashing, so.
I didn't either.
No, I didn't either, so,
All right,
okay. See ya.
thanks.
Yeah.
Okay, now, are you ready?
I think so.
All right, come on down. GIS.
Hello, how's it going?
Good.
So, just a little update. As you recall from last year, I created like a recreation map for viewers, Montezuma County residents for camping and fishing resources. Probably like a couple months ago, I recently put it on the website so you can view it, and the county can view it. It's next to the property map viewer, and recently I also made some QR sticker codes. That way people can put it on water bottles, wherever they want to put it. And it's like a QR code where they can scan it with their cell phones, and they can easily access trails, fishing spots, trails, and good hiking trails, and also distribute it out to some of the local business downtown, and some of the cashiers and clerks. They were getting a lot of customers saying like, "Hey, is there like a good resource for looking up county trails?" And most of them were, some of the information is lacking. So they're glad that I gave them some of those resources to them. So that's up and running on the website. Recently, we was able to download some new imagery for the county. Actually, the whole from the USDA website, NRCS. They recently put out new imagery for pretty much the whole U.S. So that way we can have updated imagery for 2023, and that way we can get because we were lacking imagery. Our last imagery was back in 2021, so just right now we have what's been developed, what's not been developed, and what kind of new roads are out there, or what kind of, based on the imagery that we got from the USDA. So we're able to put that imagery onto the website, and you can also view it real time on the property map viewer map as well. So that's.
So
that's pretty much
I have a question for you, Nolan.
Yeah.
On your website or our website, how quick and easy is it to get to the trail system?
It depends. It's just like a quick resources. So it's just mainly made for off the highway. It's not meant for remote trails. It's just meant for easy accessible off the highway kind of trail. So I try to stress that to them. It's more like a quick reference. It doesn't show all the trails, but it's just like a easy accessible. It's mainly for people who are traveling a lot, and people don't really have off-road vehicles, so it's pretty accessible off the highway.
Okay. And accessibility to the website. I mean, can they get there in 2 clicks? Can they
No,
get there
well,
in 3
it's
clicks?
depending on how
how
savvy they are on the computer. I mean, it's just. I mean, it's more easier than the recreation viewer.
So let me ask you this question: is it easy enough to get to it with 1, 2, 3 clicks?
If you have a phone QR code, yeah, you can take a picture
Well,
of it.
that's why
Yeah.
you did the QR code.
Yeah,
Because it's a little
yeah,
bit, if you Google Montezuma County GIS, the top hit is the property map viewer, and that's focused on what most people use for property map investigations. So that's why I wanted to create this. If you go to the GIS web page, it says online mapping resources. That takes us to the landing page, which has there are 3 or 4 main maps that we feature, one of which is the recreation viewer.
Yeah.
So if you go to the website, you go to GIS, and you go to online mapping resources, then you're to that page where you have the display. Because if you rely on Google, which a lot of people do, then you're mostly just hitting that most popular product, which is the property map assessor kind of viewer. But
the QR code helps. You just take a picture with your phone, and
it's linked right off of our
Yeah.
homepage.
Yeah. So.
Guess we can embed it a little bit more in our homepage. But
Okay. All right.
yeah, the good thing about the NAPE USDA imagery is that, if you remember in 21, I asked the commissioners to buy an upgraded resolution for that imagery, because they would collect it and they would downgrade it for the USDA because the cameras collected at a high resolution. That was successful. That was a reasonable cost. I forget how much exactly that was, maybe $7,000 or $8,000. This year, they actually released the high resolution. So I'm going to assume going forward, every 2 to 3 years they collect this resolution. It's a 1-foot resolution product, and it's good enough for our purposes countywide. So that's freely available. Federal tax dollars spent. And then also the state next year should be able to be providing, through the state providing some imagery, that we should get an update next year as well. That's why we're not asking the commissioners for money for imagery, because I'm not going to do that unless we actually need it.
And then the following year, I'm going to talk about it tomorrow in the budget, but perhaps in 26, maybe do another high-resolution imagery project to get really high-resolution imagery amongst the urban areas. But that's something we can talk about in the future. And then lastly, we did a roadmap in 22. It's great to do one every 2 years. We have a few things here. If I can just step through those fairly quickly.
Sure.
Then the commissioners can decide if they want to go ahead and schedule a roadmap hearing, and we can get that done pretty easily. So I'm just gonna cruise through these, and if you have any questions, just let me know, and then we can get it published. This is a red road segment that was always a little bit strange on our roadmap. It's an extension of road Green K.3, just south of the Maverick there, and it appears that this was simply a mapping error. Back in the day, if you look at the 2005 road map, it's a little bit ambiguous. There's a road J.3. This goes, the property owner, Joanne Good, called us and just asked why that was on the road map. It's simply a private driveway. It goes to their home. There's no reason for it, so recommend that we just remove that. It doesn't serve multiple purposes. So that one's fairly easy. U.6, wing spread subdivision up there by McPhee. Rob asked this question. We had U.6 green shown going all the way up to the top here, the very top home on that property. The wing spread subdivision, U.6 is dedicated and to the county. As it's shown on this map here, it stops right there at that cul-de-sac. It was discovered that there was a snow plowing agreement from the 90s in which the county agreed to snow plow up to the top of that hill. That agreement has lapsed. It was put on the map as green for a while, but it was never a dedicated road. It simply should not have been put on the map simply because we had a temporary snow plowing agreement up to the top of the hill there. So that'll just be removed. Road 7.25 has been on the road map since 1967. Nolan was wanting to clean up some stuff and get an address assigned to Lowry Pueblo, and it triggered us to look into this situation. And I think two things happened. Is that when Lowry Pueblo was dedicated in 1967, the county donated some gravel down there. It was put on the county road map, and it showed up as a county road for many, many years. At the same time, the Canyon Ancients archaeologist said that that road also did lead to an in-holding that has since been acquired in 2001 there. But it was never a dedicated road. It's on Canyon Ancients property, and at this point, it's simply a private driveway. And since it's been on the county road map, doing some of this out of memory, but it's been on the county road map as simply a red road now for a long time. I don't think we really need to abandon anything. It's on Canyon Ancients property. They acquired it, so we would prefer that just be removed, and then Lowry Pueblo be assigned an address off of Road CC. So we realigned an Orange Road segment just for a small map change. It's not a county road, but Canyon Ancients used to have a road that went across private property to Painted Ham Pueblo. That was realigned, and they have a nice facility down there at the end of that road, so that doesn't really affect us, but it is a slight map change there, keeping on Canyon Ancients property. And then last summer we did rename a red road segment. All these segments here in these two subdivisions, these Forest Service in-holding subdivisions, were named Road 42. It was a little bit confusing because Road 42 is quite a ways, 8 miles up into the forest. So we decided to name them. They're red roads, and they're subdivision roads. They're not county roads, but we decided to name those using the Forest Service style road naming system and install address signage off of those roads. Similar situation here on this FS 386S. We just made up that name so that we had a kind of a sub road coming off of the Forest Service 386 road that goes in, and there's 13 lots that are addressed using this new red road name going into Millwood Acres subdivision. And then this is adding a orange road segment, which is, it's always good to have a complete inventory of all the Forest Service roads. We noticed this was, excuse me, this road was simply missed, left off our map, even though it is open. I think it's a little bit of a rough road, but people use it for recreation, so we added it to our road map. Connects Road 40 and 41.
Is that road, is it passable?
I think it is. I thought it was. I mean, there's sites back there.
This road passable?
Yeah, there was like a RV parked by that reservoir.
By the reservoir.
Yeah.
Is it blocked beyond that? It's on the Forest Service maps.
Yeah, I think it's seasonal too, like winter.
Where that goes around there, it goes into the forest, then it goes back out onto the private ground again. There, but this one coming across here,
Yeah.
you can, that's closed most of the year,
Yeah.
except during the summer. And they just fixed it enough that you could get across the ditches there. I don't,
So through the summertime, maybe 4
Yeah.
months out of the year, you can
go
I was gonna
through.
say, I've never,
But you can't pull a trailer or anything, cause there's one corner in there that's really, really sharp. You
Yeah,
can't go through
I've camped there north of that lake. I guess that's on BLM land or Department. I've camped back in there and ridden my bike back and forth, and it looks like a road. I'm not sure if it's actually gated or not on either end, but there's a lot of dispersed camping back in there. So even if you can't get out one end or another, it is open for recreation through most of that road, even if you have to turn around. But like the disclaimer on our road map says, is that just because a road map is on the map doesn't necessarily mean it is open and passable. Contact the local land agency for more information. So,
okay.
yeah, there's some good campsites back there. Similar thing with map change number 8, simply a road that was missing on the road map, and I think we did wind up driving down this road. It exists down in the forest.
396.
And going all the way back, we mostly like to have roads shown within the Forest Service and public land, so that if they do close down roads, we have a historic inventory of those. Not that we can't go back to the old road maps as well, or the old Forest Service quads as well, to show things. Map change number 9 is significant in that Road 14, Gail Alexander granted us a county right-of-way easement across her property to link up existing Green Road 14 through her property to the BLM Canyon Ancient. So that was an important connector.
I've been out there now.
Yeah.
Or I was lost out there.
This was Rob requested this be put back on the road map. It was a very short section of road that it was on the road map for many years, up until 1995, and I think it was just left off for whatever reason, but it has been dedicated as a county road. It's a section line road, 1/10 of a mile. So we add that back to the roadmap.
Why does it just stop there? I mean.
I
is
think
it-
the road just ends.
Oh,
Yeah,
It's one of those,
It ends right there.
On X.
There's nothing.
so it just services that house?
It just goes past Oliver's house right there and stops.
Got it.
yeah, it's a section line. It could go further, but it just,
Right.
it's always been like that, I guess. It's one of those things, section
Yeah,
line
because
road.
all the traffic thing goes back onto 16
Mhm.
and then back.
Yeah. Yeah, and it all has to go back up 16 to get out of there.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's- And I don't know why it was ever on there to begin with, because all it does is just go up there to that house right there where,
Yeah, it should be a private drive. Why is it? I mean, we're changing others to private drives. Why would we do that? Why would we add that? I mean, it should be a private drive. Just my question, looking
Yeah,
at it from
I
what
think,
we just talked about,
Yeah,
everything
think,
else we're
I had
changing
a-
to a private drive when it goes,
yeah, I think I had a call from, or I heard some conversation where the reason why it kind of goes to that house is because the person who lives there works for the county, and they had drive a school bus, and then they allowed the county school, or one of the school buses to, like a clearance, something to do with the school bus. Yeah, so.
I mean, the real question of whether it's a public road or not isn't necessarily what it accesses, it's how it was created and how long it's been being used as a public road. So, I mean, you can have a public road that accesses a single residence.
sure.
And so that's sort of an interesting thing with several of these. I mean, it really goes back to when they're created. And so, I mean, you'd have to go back and look at the history of this road and when was it put in? Has the public used it? Was it a grant of a road? Was it a road petition? What did that all look like? Because, we need to be a little careful about just changing stuff on the map because it accesses
Right.
one house versus 10 houses versus 5 houses. I mean, you know what I'm saying? That's
Well-
not the test.
Historically, there
Sure.
were quite a few things put on the roadmap just like this because a road was built to a home and somebody got a county road, to their house, maintained private driveway sort of thing. Now, I mean, granted, it is along a section line, but whether or not, it was on. It was on as red for a long time. Whether you want to change it back to green or not.
No, that was why I asked the question.
It's
I
a
mean,
good
we
question.
just 2-3 slides previous to this one, we cut them off for the same purpose, and I was just asking the question. I
Yeah.
mean,
well, I tell you what happened with some of those right there. And I don't know, our policy when I was in here before was that if they wanted to bring that road up, and it was on that section line, and they wanted to bring that road up to county standards, then we would take it over and maintain it. And that's probably what happened with that thing right there. Because a lot of those roads, some of those roads out through there were just dirt. But if people built out there and they wanted to bring that road up to standards and get it gravelled and bring it up to county standards, then we would take it over. And that's probably what happened with that.
because this one's not old. This is 1995. It's not.
Well, it was before that. I don't have the date that it first showed up on the roadmap, but that's probably how a lot of the section line roads got built, is everybody kept adding on to it because it is a section line. It provides access probably naturally to multiple properties. So it's to that property right now, but theoretically it could provide access to properties further east as well.
Well, and the property to the north of that road right there doesn't belong to the part that the house is on.
Mhm.
That stuff, because the Olivers live there in that house, and that Wilson's on that part to the north of it, where that pivot is there. I think that's on Wilson's place.
I mean, I think conceivably a problem we could have with something like this is if this has been being used as a public road for 20 years, then it's a public road. And it wouldn't even be appropriate for us to change it to red if it's been accessible by the public and used by the public for the
Red-
prescriptive
Red is
period.
still a public road.
Well, it could be.
It's just
It
not-
could
Red
be.
could be either.
Could be
Yeah.
either.
Red can be a private driveway, or it could be a public easement, or it could be a private easement shared amongst certain property owners. Yeah,
But red, we're not making any claim.
correct.
Red, we're-
And I
we're
think
not
if we have
maintaining
a situation where we've got a prescriptive right-of-way that's been being used, that's a public highway, I don't know that it would be appropriate for us to not make a claim that that road is public. Now, we don't need to maintain it. We don't need to plow it. We don't need to gravel it. But that doesn't mean that it's not a county right-of-way.
I think the intent there, though, is if it's a green road, we are maintaining it, right? Is that my understanding, that it's always been, if it's green, it's maintained, if it's red, it's not?
Well, it's at the county's
It's
discretion.
at the county's discretion. And not every green road in the county is maintained by the county. Correct, Doug? I mean,
Right.
there are green
There are
roads in the
some
county that we don't maintain.
Essentially unbuilt sections of road that have been on the road map a long time, or maybe they're maintained at one point and they might not even be graded now, but theoretically, we shouldn't be getting HUTF funding for it if it is not at least bladed once a year and kept open in a passable
Right.
condition.
So I'll, because it was a red road, it still means it's the public can use a red road.
Could be,
Not necessarily, though.
not necessarily. So that's where we get into.
So then
we're-
is it a private drive, or what is it? I don't
It-
know.
If it was an error that it was changed, if it was green from, say, 1960 to 1995, and it was a map error that it showed up as a red road, and we never actually abandoned it because we maintained it and showed it as a county road for many decades, then it was a map error that it's red, and we're correcting it and saying it's green. If we don't want it anymore, then we should abandon it. In which case, you look at it and you say, you know, this road serves the county no purpose, we don't want it, and you notice the property owners, and then they can weigh in specifically on that road segment, and we can say, are we cutting off access to properties by abandoning it, which is a little bit different than a map, you know, on a road. If we're making certain green changes to our green road segments that could potentially cut off public access, either to the public in general or to specific landowners, then we have to abandon it in addition to making a map change. So the question is, do we have a prescriptive easement there, and has it been maintained the whole time? So,
Well, and it's not even whether it's been maintained. It's whether the public has used it.
yeah,
I mean, that was the situation we ran into with Road 41.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we have, we've done periodic maintenance on portions of that road since the dawn of time, or the dawn of that road. But, I mean, that was a prescriptive right-of-way, and that would be my concern with this one. I mean, it certainly, whether it was red or green, it's been open to the public. Conceivably, it's probably been used by the public. I
Yeah.
don't know. I mean, those are all details you have to fill in, but if we have those facts and we don't want it to be a county right-of-way anymore, then we should abandon it.
yeah, and that's a good question, and maybe I'll have more information on this, and we can decide whether, it sounds like we need more information on this, but that's a great conversation, because in this case, if, obviously we know that the Olivers are using it, that's the Olivers' property, but the question is, are there neighbors to the north using it as well, and does it affect both of them? And if it lacks an easement agreement between them, then essentially we could be landlocking their parcels in a sense, not really.
Yeah, it's really a factual determination. I mean, that's really what it is, and I don't know, that one would make me nervous to just, get rid of it.
Well, and this was to change it to green from red. It was showing up as red. So that's changing it to green. That's saying essentially,
So they're saying turn it to green and maintain it, the way I look at it, the way I read it.
turn it to green and and then the road department gets to, through the commissioners, the road
ECTF.
superintendent determines what level of maintenance it gets.
Yep.
So that's essentially saying it had been greened in the past, and it was maintained in the 1990s, and we're turning it back to green from red.
I mean, really, all we're doing is we're making a claim that that's a county road. That's all that this map change is doing
Which is
at
probably
this point.
it's probably the safe assumption to say that and then abandon it if we want to do that.
That would be the safe way to go. I mean, if that's the direction that this board wants to go, but claim it as a public road, and then if you want to abandon it, abandon it.
Whereas, yeah,
But
and a little bit, in that wing spread subdivision where we had it as green,
that's where I'm going.
Well, that's the thing, we need to talk to those landowners there and see what, if they
Because
want it or not.
just like the one prior, the Goods, they're like, I don't want this
There's
as a
no, it
public
doesn't
road.
go anyplace.
No,
I mean,
it doesn't
goes
go
to that
anywhere.
house, that's the only place it goes.
Could it go somewhere else if it went across that section line all the way
The only
across
thing
to
is,
15 or 17 or wherever?
I mean, we can abandon anything we want to abandon. We have to have a public hearing and go through the abandonment process and receive public comment.
I just don't see, what's the difference of changing it to green from red? What's the purpose in this one? Unless they
If
don't
it's
want
not-
it because it's just their private driveway.
It's probably
They
an
don't wanna-
accurate depiction of what it
They
is.
don't want the public using it.
Mhm.
I mean,
Mhm.
that's what I would think if I'm the only one there, you don't want all the public coming down that road and turning around because it probably, I'm guessing, just turned into dirt. Or, I mean, I don't know.
right there at that driveway, yeah, past that, it's nothing.
So.
As I was trying to remember, I mean, I was down there last year, but 2 or 3 times into that house, but I don't remember what was on down, like where it goes on
I
past
just
that
ask, because
driveway.
every time we do this, and I remember specifically in Mancus, not too long ago, and still comes up every time, I think we were all 3 sitting here, it's like, why did you change that to a public road? Because it really was our private driveway, and we really want it to be a private driveway.
Mhm.
And it accesses nothing but our private homes.
Mhm.
So I just have to ask a question when I see this kind of stuff, and I'm like, why are we changing it? Because it goes to one person's house, and then it terminates. I don't,
I could certainly ask Rob why he requested it to be turned back to green, because obviously there was some reason.
and you guys know what I'm talking about when I reference the place in Mancus.
Yeah.
We changed that, and it was really,
But ultimately, the question again is not, it's not where it terminates or how many houses it
I get it.
accesses. It's whether the public
or
uses
not?
this thing.
right.
And if the public uses this thing, then it's a public road if they use it for the prescriptive period. And so that's the question. Whether there were, 25 houses back here or 1 house back
I
here.
understand that.
That's, yeah.
So a red road, the way it is right now, what does that red road tell me? Is it prescriptive? Can the public use it? Can they not use it?
Well, that leaves it ambiguous. If it's green, it's not ambiguous. It is a public road that should be open and not gated, If it's red, it can be a number of different things. There's red roads that are on there for addressing that are private driveways and yeah.
Okay.
I'll get some more
Sorry,
information.
Doug.
No,
I kind of,
I think it's a good conversation to
Hijacked
have and a
your-
useful conversation to have
Well, I
because,
just-
it does matter what the correct designation on these things is.
even a 1/10 of a mile segment, because there are
Yeah.
definitely roads that were put on there because there are private driveways, and that's the way things certainly worked in the early days. If you take a look at, this is just a determination, but if you take a look at that situation with the wing spread subdivision in which we showed the road as a green road for a couple decades, you know, I would say that that is essentially was a mapping error in the past, because if you look at the plat, there's a dedicated portion that the county signed on to as a public easement that ends at that cul-de-sac. Beyond that, it is a easement that was not dedicated to the county, and the fact that it showed going up to the top there, it was never dedicated to the public, to the county, and that's pretty clear. So I don't think we have to abandon anything just to make a map change in that situation, but these are.
It depends what, again, it goes back to the use though. I mean, that's
what I'm saying. So everything that we looked at today goes back to the use. So if the public was using any of those that you've presented to us today, and for the length of time, that it, I mean, do we have, I mean, the one that goes to the goods that you just showed us to start with, I mean, that makes all the sense in the world. Stop right there. If they're a private piece of property, you don't want it to be a dedicated green road or red road that the public uses. But what you're saying is if it has been used by the public,
and if it was presented as being open to the public and the public used it
then it's
over the objection of the landowner, then it becomes a prescriptive right-of-way. Now, I don't know, was the public using that? I kind of doubt it.
I certainly doubt it.
I mean, that one truly was a driveway.
Yep. It's a little different when it runs on a section line.
Yep, exactly.
And, yeah, correct, I get that, like the one we're looking at right now, that makes, you're right on a section line, it ties 20 and 21, I mean, that one,
Yeah.
that makes sense. But.
I mean, not to get too complicated, but if you look at what Canham did and realigning that road to the Panhandle Pueblo, well, you know, that old alignment went through those properties without objection for many, many decades. So they realigned the road for their own purposes. Doesn't mean that there's not a, I guess, potentially 2477 glam across those private properties to get to the Panhandle Pueblo. Maybe
Right.
somebody doesn't care about that, but, you know, there was historic public use for decades that
Across
is documented.
So it is
It's there.
prescriptive.
Yeah, and that's not part of the county road system, fortunately, but we probably should have abandoned that, they should have abandoned that old easement and realigned it to a new easement, if that's the
So,
case.
do we have one more, or is that it, Doug? Because,
Are we running over?
no, you got all kinds of time.
Okay.
I was just gonna get to the point of, do we need to actually have that hearing next to or we're not abandoning them, we're adding them, or changing them? It's a change, it's not really an add or minus.
Well, I think when we do the roadmap, I can get more information, I can ask Rob, and we can weigh in from the landowner, and we can then have a proposal based on that information between now and then. But with any of these, you can thumbs up or thumbs down any single one of these map changes at the roadmap hearing, and then we'll just produce a roadmap based on those individual changes that you
Okay.
want to do during the hearing.
Okay.
So, yeah, number 11 is just, this road was gravelled in 2016. Rob caught that we had it on there as graded, so we changed the gravel, just a surface change. This next one, 12, could be, well, potentially it's controversial, but it goes across the Simon Draw wetlands there, and we know that Bureau of Reclamation does have a public easement going through there, and some people have been trying to block that off. But again, it's not a county road at this time, but through a research documents is that it is a public easement for use of those wetlands, and we mapped that road out specifically for that. And we have, I think, at least 3 addresses that should be assigned off of that K.5. One property that's being developed and one that's already developed. And more importantly, we need to install a red road K.5 sign at that location. So that's one that probably needs to happen, to just monument that.
Gosh, I'm trying to see that road in my head and I can't even see it, and I drive up and down 29
It,
all the time.
it dives down kind of off the, you can go down in there and
Is
you
it
can
right
start.
off of 29 when you go south, that little dirt,
Mm-hmm.
little dirt road
Yeah.
there?
There's
Okay.
those Totten,
Just kind of-
Yeah, okay.
it's just, it kind of, it's pretty quick, you're driving pretty quick there, but just kind
There's
of
not
dishes
much
down
traffic
pretty
to
quickly.
it, so it's not, didn't show up very good.
Doesn't NBI have a
Very little.
pipeline or something in there?
What's that?
Doesn't NBI have a pipeline or something in there?
No, it's way on the other side.
Okay.
It's way on the other side.
Okay, sorry. I keep,
Yeah, it's
Messing
worth
up.
checking out. I know James has been down there duck hunting some, so. But it's one of those that's a little bit controversial because I think people try to say there's not access across there when there certainly is. Empire did their subdivision in there and the surveying is good, so. Number 13 is just a red road for a subdivision, 2024 subdivision, added a short road name. And then lastly, there was one, we're gonna have to do a bit more research on this too that I brought up, but this is road 16.75 south of N. It's strange because it had been on the road map since the 1960s. And I'd driven down there many times over the years, and there's never been a road sign. We've had it on the road map as a red road in recent years. Rob asked all of his crews, and they don't have any familiarity as far as it ever being maintained by the county. It appears to go to one property, and it appears that the road is now part of that one property from the surveys that I've seen. So here again, I guess I'm going to do some more research on this and have a better recommendation, but I don't know why it's on the road map at all. But then it begs the question of why it was shown as a green road for many decades, and it simply goes to one property.
so,
You know, so many of these things are fact dependent. I mean, that's really what it comes down to, just like we've seen with some of the road cases we've had. What was the use? Who was using it? Do we have any record of it being used? I mean, that's,
because you're basically recommending here that this be taken off because it's a private driveway.
It appears to be a private driveway. It doesn't appear to need an easement at all because it is all part of that one parcel to one house. And
it's always interesting when something shows up on the road map, though, for years and years and years. You said this was on the road map in the 60s?
yeah, yep.
So the public could have used it. For sure.
Potentially, I
I
mean.
mean, it makes sense to
I mean-
me, it's a private driveway. I mean, there's still only one residence there is what we're seeing. I mean, it makes sense to me, but
I mean, we've certainly used the road map, though, in the past as evidence that a road was open to the public and used by the public, and we've used our county road maps that depict green roads as evidence of a prescriptive easement. So,
Yeah, so
I mean, that's the tricky part. We use our road map in that way to demonstrate public roads all the time.
I hesitate to be overly proactive in trying to clean these things up based on
Yeah.
what I think should be done, but all we can do is look at all the evidence that we have in front of us and
Yeah.
say, do we want this as part of the county roadmap system? Or is there any other reason that it is on the roadmap? Well, be it red, green, or orange road.
because it's allowing that piece of property on both to the right and the left access. Because if you go where the green road is diagonal, you can't get to this little boot hill piece of property from that picture from the north, where the pond, see the section line goes right through the pond? Well, actually you can, because there's a driveway right there. I don't know.
I guess in some sense, to the extent that we think that we have a claim of a right-of-way, it's always good to claim that right-of-way, and then if we don't want it, go through the abandonment process. I mean, that's always the safest way legally to handle these things. I mean, so like this road, for instance, if we have evidence that we think this is a county right-of-way, my advice would be, if we can prove that up, then we should put that on as a county right-of-way. Now, just because we put it on as a county right-of-way doesn't mean that you guys
Right.
have to leave it as a county right-of-way,
Correct.
but if there's evidence that it is, then we should put it as one and then abandon it if that's what the county wants to do.
So, good conversation. So the question here is, do we remove it because it doesn't need to be on there? Or should it be, if it had been on there as a county right-of-way in the past and been used by the public, should it be a green road and left on?
See, the reason, I mean, to me, it's only a private drive because this guy's accessing up here off the Green Road, right here. And this person is accessing, I'm sure, off of N Road. So it goes just to the house.
I guess and I guess the last thing I would say is, even if we're not using an easement at a given time, even if we're not using a public road for anything or maintaining it for anything or anything else, it might be something you want to hang on to and keep because it's not hurting anything by being there. If it's gone, it's gone.
Yeah. You almost never want to abandon a right-of-way. It's almost always a mistake.
Okay.
So I guess that said, do you want me to look into those more, and then we'll set a roadmap hearing date at a later date after we give you more information on those couple of issues?
Yeah.
Okay.
And
Because I just,
feel free to reach out to me too if I
Okay.
can help in any way or
Yeah, no.
whatever. So
We'll dig in more on those two. And
I
so
just-
even though there's not that many changes, not that many in this, it's good to go through this process every couple of years because it does matter.
we had a lot of people in here when we went through the process last time.
Oh, well, yeah.
I remember that.
Yeah. And that was when
Couple
the
years
Summit
ago.
Lake roads were put on? Is that when the
The
Summit?
roads over in Mancus that basically, off of,
Oh, that one. Yeah.
Um,
Oh, yeah.
trying to think of the number of the road over there.
Is that
41?
41 or 42? Yeah.
Yeah,
Weber
you know what I'm
Canyon.
talking about. So I'm just asking a question before we get into a public hearing.
Good questions. We'll get back to you and then
All
we'll
right.
set a date.
Thank you, guys. Any other questions? I'm sorry. No. No? Okay. All right, James Dietrich, come on down. We have you for the rest of the day. Okay, you have 5 minutes.
Afternoon, gentlemen.
Good afternoon.
Do you want to hear the noxious weed department report first, or do you want to hear natural resources
Do the
first?
short one first.
Okay. So natural resources, still involved with a number of the collaboratives that are have sprung up throughout the county here. Still involved with the Dolores Watershed Collaborative. I remain on the executive committee, and we're still meeting every couple of weeks on that. We're really trying to work to try to identify the projects that we think will fit in with the CFLRP, which is the Southwest Collaborative Forest Restoration Program. So the idea is we're pairing up projects because the CFLRP has very specific language in the enabling legislation that directs us to do forest restoration. It directs us to look at some of the recreation, and it directs us to look at a few other things in there. So what we're trying to do is pair up the projects that are already NEPA ready within our forest to the CFLRP so we can make sure we get the funding correct on that. And part of the reason that's all important is that we have to provide reports back to the CFLRP, and those go back to Congress, and they have a look at everything. And so we want to just make sure our reporting, everything is correct on that. Most of that is coming internally through the Forest Service, so our job is really just to try to identify projects and figure out which ones meet each one of the criteria that come through that CFLRP. I'm also on the CFLRP Executive Committee and also the Projects and Places Committee. And so we're meeting monthly on those. And again, those two collaboratives kind of work back and forth, just trying to pair up the ones that seem to fit with the funding that's coming available. At the same time, we're also looking, we have the CFLRP, which is the federal dollars. We're also looking for state dollars. And part of the objective is really to try to get work done on both sides of the fence. So we know we have a lot of work to do up on the forest, and they have to do the NEPA work and everything. They've got some of that ready, but we're also trying to make the connections with private landowners, especially those that have large properties that are adjacent to the forest, and see if we can get any kind of good restoration projects going on that. And again, part of the key component of that is really to get our timber industry engaged in that, because it's just too big of a problem without having the commercial component of that. That's the only way we're going to be able to handle that. So that's kind of moving on, and it will be moving on for quite some time. Again, that CFLRP is a 10-year program, so we'll be engaged with this for a long time yet. I've also been engaging with the Montelores Coalition, and I think commissioners have told you about this in the past. It's part of the CPW Regional Partnership Initiative. I serve on the executive committee for that one also. We've been meeting every 2 weeks on that. The last thing we've really been engaged in is trying to secure funding from CPW for the Partners in Outdoors 2024 planning project. That's a 20-month planning project. Sorry about that. 20-month planning project, and really we're supposed to be trying to network with the other regional collaboratives that are happening around us. So over in La Plata County, they've got a regional collaborative that's working over there, and of course our regional collaborative is us in Dolores County. So eventually what we're trying to do is make sure that there's at least some kind of a nexus between each one of these planning regions. And again, the objective of that is really kind of taking a look at the increase in recreational activity out there. And there's really a conservation component on that too, and that's one of the pieces that we're working through, because CPW is trying to identify high priority places to place a conservation emphasis. And the way they're going about that is they've developed kind of a GIS map. And this GIS map takes input from all these various different elements. Primarily, though, it is habitat maps for I think they had 16 species they look at in particular. What that does is it really kind of narrows it down to the most valuable areas for conservation, and where the conservation is overlapping with things like public access and recreation. So, for example, Plata Canyon, for example, would be a recreational corridor. That whole road is key to recreation. It probably crosses through some elk production areas, things like that. So that is where we're trying to layer things up to find the highest priority areas, and so hopefully they can kind of target that just a little more precisely. From my perspective, I think that's, for me, just working with the conservation easements, that kind of brings things kind of a little more together for me, because it feels like we were taking kind of the shotgun approach on conservation easements. This would make it a little bit more surgical, so I feel good about that. Anyway, I'll continue working with that group, and that again, it's going to be about a 20-month long planning process through that. We were awarded $214,000 to continue that planning effort. And at the end of that, we should have kind of a conceptual recreation plan, which should be brought forward to the county, and we'll have to make a decision on whether or not to adopt that plan in the end or not. So, but as I said, it's a long process. We'll have to keep bringing information back. I'm also working with the South Broadway work group, and I'm mainly staying engaged in that. It's all within city limits, but I'm staying engaged in that because one of the concepts that we came out of our outdoor recreation plan involved access off of that South Highway sign, the Welcome to Cortez sign, and trying to get the access over to Hawkins, because there's city land that makes that connection. And if we can get some parking out there and have access to that trail, that really checks one of our tasks off from that recreation plan. Of course, also staying engaged with the Gunnison sage grouse. So I did want to let the commissioners know that that was published, their decision was published in the Federal Register on Friday, July 5th. And that should give us the 60-day governor's consistency review and a 30-day protest period if we wanted to protest against that. I'm not seeing a lot that I think we'd love to protest against it, but I'm not seeing a whole lot that we can really sink our teeth into on that one and come up with any kind of a reasonable protest. Unless the commissioners have something, please share with me and we'll throw something together really quick. And then the Flowdine Yellow Jacket allotments, they've completed the programmatic agreement and they're now proceeding through the rest of the process. We'll be starting to work on the mitigation as far as how to handle some of the ruins that are a little more sensitive down there. And then my guess is it's going to be a couple more years before we get through that. And yeah, I'm there with you, Gerald, because
It's only been 30 now?
we may not all be alive by the time this thing gets through the end, so.
Well, you're an optimist, aren't you?
I'm sorry?
You're a real optimist.
Well, yeah, I've worked long enough
I
for the federal
know.
government to not be feeling very optimistic anymore. So,
I remember the day this was first proposed.
yeah,
That was a long time ago.
yeah, very long time ago, yeah. Well, anyway, yeah, so nutshell, I'm not very optimistic on that one. Yeah, it is moving forward. It's just not at the pace I'd like to see it move at. It's really kind of the fundamental
So
thing.
30-some years ago, it was moving forward, right?
Well, I mean, it hasn't been quite that long, but it feels like that, every bit of it. So by the end of this, it very well may be.
Okay.
I just worry about the rancher that's trying to get that allotment, because he may not be alive, by the time this, Anyway, we could go all day with that. So as far as my special projects go, past the Mesa Verde, segment C and D on the Mancos side, our plans are at the 95% level on that, and so we're trying to get those to the point where we can shelve those plans. As the commissioners know, we're also working on trying to get a grant to replace that Chicken Creek box culvert, which for us would save some of that ARPA money and would also get us the first real piece of infrastructure on the ground for that trail, for one thing. But then the other thing is really it's an undersized culvert, and the objective of that is to upsize that culvert so it can handle the fire debris flows in case we happen to have a wildfire upstream from that. So that grant should be submitted sometime this week, and we're hoping to get that thing. It has to be under contract by December, so we're going to have to be moving really quickly on that. We've got to put it out to bid for an RFP and go through their selection process. So we'll be moving pretty fast on that if we get that grant. Past the Mesa Verde segment B, we're currently responding to the last of the CDOT comments. We went through the final office review on that set of plans. We should have all those comments reviewed by the end of July, and then that one should be shovel ready also, so it'll be on the shelf. For segment A, we've got the route finalized. We're working with landowners to get right-of-way for the few pieces that we need to get the right-of-way on, and then we're beginning the final design for segment A. That's the one we're still really engaged in the planning process on that. So then moving on to the IHOP Affordable Housing Project, Ayers and Associates, they're finalizing the report. We've been in coordination with the city on that. There's some data that's coming out. The city's finding through their study they have a different result than what we've got. So what they're coming back in with, and this has to do with the rental markets, they're saying there's about a 2% availability for rentals out there. For our side of things, it's coming out at about 10%. And I think the reason is because of the data sources that we use. So we use data sources that came from the census, and the city was looking more at data that was coming from local realtors. So we're getting two different numbers on that, but again, we're also looking at the county, not within the city. So there's a difference there. I think the easiest way to resolve this is really just kind of let Ayers run with their numbers, the city's numbers, and it shouldn't affect us with anything, but I think it'll help the city get over their headache with it. So that should, again, I'm finishing up the final reports and reimbursement requests. I should be done with that by the end of July here. So for the OREC, Outdoor Recreation Strategy, we've completed the final plan. We will plan to make one final public presentation to kind of unveil that to the public. We're trying to target a date at the end of July or sometime in August. It's mainly just trying to line up a venue for that, and that's been a little bit difficult. We'll get that done and do the final presentation. So I'm right now completing the final billing and reporting on that. Again, that should be finished up by the end of July here also. So 2 of those grant projects should fall off my plate at the end of July here. Thank goodness. Okay, so now we can go on to the fun stuff.
Yeah, that was the easy one.
Yeah, absolutely.
Gentlemen, that was the easy one.
So we'll start with the easy stuff on this one too. Well, let's start off with, we've got Russell Smith, who's our new noxious weed technician. Russell's been getting up to speed on everything. He's brand new, really hasn't got a lot of experience with the weed identification and all that, so he's really putting a lot of effort into learning that. He's currently out there, he's doing reviews on 3 proposed projects for the planning department to determine if we need to do a weed plan for those properties. So he's making those kind of contacts. I've had him trying to make a lot of effort to just get out and talk to people. Because I think our education is kind of the low-hanging fruit here, and we really need to get more just visitation happening with people out there. So I've also got him working on the cost share program. He's been entering some data for me into that, because just entering the paperwork has been a fair load on that one. So that's been a relief. And he's also been working on the ATV and the spray equipment, because I want to get him going on spraying our properties as soon as we possibly can. There's no manual for the spray equipment and everything out there, but he's a pretty clever guy, and he's been able to kind of figure out how to make all that stuff work. So if we run into any kind of issues with it, we'll call around. We'll find somebody that can give us some assistance with that. But that's kind of my next task for him, is to get him to inventory and spraying our properties. And then we're also working with the BLM and the U.S. Forest Service to develop the pesticide use plan. And so once he gets those developed for both the BLM and the Forest Service, we can get those 2 gravel pits taken care of that are on federal property. And then he'll finalize that one gravel pit that we've got that's ours. So the cross-share program, that's been going pretty good, very popular. And so we're up to about $9,000 at this point in people that have returned their applications. There are a few of them that are hanging. I'm going to say there's probably about 10 out there that haven't been processed through, so that number is going to go up a little bit. But we're doing pretty good with that. Then we got the 2024 CDA agreement came in, and of course that's for $20,000, and that'll carry us through the rest of this year and into next year for the cost share program. So we're getting a lot of calls regarding compliance. So a lot of folks out there are saying, hey, my neighbor's got a big patch of Scotch thistle or whatever. So we're doing the best we can do to respond to those people. Russell will go out and visit with some folks that feel like they've got some problems out there. We're really not allowed to really do any other enforcement until we get our own properties taken care of. So anyway, that's sort of where we're at for the moment. But as soon as we get those done, then we'll try to get people. And we'll take kind of a more gentle approach, just telling people, send them a letter saying, hey, it's become part of our attention that, you've got Scotch thistle or whatever it is on your property, and we'll try to give them some information on how to take care of that, and just make sure that they're aware of the Colorado weed laws and everything, to try to encourage them to get after it. Okay, so let's move on to the Phreatophyte project. The first thing I wanted to let the commissioners know is that we've submitted the reimbursement request for the WaterSmart grant. And so thanks to Robert. I've really got to give Robert kudos on that. He's really been helpful in doing all the forensic research on that to come up with that the information we needed to provide so that we could get our reimbursement. Anyway, we've submitted a grant request for $42,000. So far, I've had no further requests for additional data, so that's usually a good sign. We haven't got the money in hand yet, but again, we haven't had any requests for additional supporting documentation. So moving on to the Johnson property. As of last Thursday, it appears that we've completed about 75 of 139 acres. So Chris Swift he's been our contractor out there doing the work. He hasn't been down there very much over the last week. He had to be out of town for the first week of 4th of July weekend. I know he was down there. He intended to go down and work Friday and Saturday, so hopefully he's made a pretty good dent working those 2 days. So it appears at this point we have spent out about $117,000 out of $160,000 that we had budgeted for this project. So that leaves us about $43,000 left in the budget. All the guys down there seem to think that we've made it through the hardest of the work that we had to do down there, so that's probably some good news. So right now, and I think if we take a look at that map that you've got up there, let's go through that a little bit. So we started at the north end of the property, and we worked through, there was that 8-acre section, then there was an 18-acre section down below it. Oh, see, I guess we're on the wrong map there. Yeah, that one there. And that shows the whole property, all in one nutshell there. So most recently, they've been working down on that middle segment. In stuff that's outlined in blue is the stuff that we feel like we've got done. There's a little bit of treatment that that our guy's gonna have to do to go back and do some spraying in that area, but I think they're moving on with all the equipment down to that third piece. And what they're doing is going down to the property line at the west and working their way back up north. So anyway, as you can see, out of 4 discrete components of the project, we've got ourselves through 3 of them, and we're on to the last one. That's about 64 acres. Travis, if you could scroll down on that one, we'll look at that one a little more closely. So what we're seeing within this one, you see that area that's shaded green. So that's where our crew is currently working, and from what our crew and Chris Swift is saying, is that they feel like there's about a week's worth of work to cover that area shaded in green. The area that's shaded in red is that 10 acres that we were talking about kicking out of the project, and it was mainly because the landowner didn't think we could access that property. I don't find anything in the contracts that says anything about removing that 10 acres, so this appears to be a decision just based off of what the landowner is saying. So my suggestion and that's pretty heavy, thick stuff right there. My suggestion was to go ahead and finish that out last. And so what Chris Swift has been doing is he's gotten down to the property line at the west end, and so he's working his way back up. Just south of that red shaded area, there's a bridge, and that cursor is right on it right there. So that's kind of the dividing point right there. And what we're angling on is trying to get Chris to work his way back up to that bridge as fast as he can. So when we look at our budget, we've got about $43,000 left right now. So we know we're going to need to have James Baker available to do the spraying, and I think in my mind, I'm kind of strategizing on having him available for July and August for doing that. That should run about $5,500 a month, rough, to keep him going. That's his fringe and also his pay. So I'm budgeting $5,500 a month, so that would keep him going for July and August. So that would be $11,000 for those 2 months. And then if we drop one of the pieces of equipment off from Chris, we could get rid of the skid steer and let him just work with the excavator. And that was based off of some of the information I got from James Baker this morning. He feels like it'd be most beneficial to keep that excavator working. So anyway, we could get 2 more weeks with him, and that would cost about $16,800. And then we've got, if we project this out 2 more months, we've got 2 more cat lease payments to make. Those are about $1,600 a piece. And then our fuel has been running roughly $1,000 a month. So basically, if we kind of budget all that out, that should give us about $33,032 that we should spend out over the next 2 months in that type of a configuration, which will leave us about $10,000 in reserve that we could ask for Chris to come back for another week. That would buy us another week with him. Or we could keep our guy going, basically that would buy him 2 more months at the configuration that we currently got.
So we're paying for both of the machines down there, but we're only running one at a time?
Essentially, that's how it's
What?
working. So we've got 3 pieces of equipment down there, and so our guy goes between his equipment and the spray, and then when Chris is down there, he's going between 2 pieces of equipment. He sometimes has another operator down there also. But his operator, I think you might know him, works down for Farmington Fire. So he comes up on his days off and helps Chris with that. So, so I guess what I'm suggesting is that we could take one piece of equipment away from the project, which will probably be the skid steer, and then let Chris continue working, on a weekly basis with his remaining piece of equipment to try to help continue to accelerate this project. So the other thing is, so Chris, I haven't been able to reach him today, so I'm assuming he's down there. He hasn't got cell phone service down there. So what I really want to know from him is if we have any days remaining left from what we've already contracted with him. And I think we may have a day or 2 remaining because he lost a day with all that rain. He couldn't even access the property one day down there. So I'm hoping we've got at least 1 or 2 more days remaining. And what I would tell him to do is just take out everything you possibly take with that skid steer. Get all the flat stuff done that you can possibly get to, and then release that piece of equipment and kind of keep him going with the excavator, which can reach over and get to the hard stuff at that point. So what I'm estimating is it looks like we've got between 4 and 6 weeks worth of work down there, assuming everything goes well and nothing goes wrong. The one thing we haven't calculated in is, if our equipment breaks down or anything like that, and we've had those. The last piece of, the last repair that we got in, I finally got the bill for that, and that was about $2,700 to replace those motor mounts on that excavator. So, I don't know whether or not we're going to face any more repair bills or anything like that, so I was trying to kind of keep about $10,000 in reserve, A, to cover any potential repair bills that come up, and then B, if we're still not completed by that point, we could probably get Chris to come back out for one more shot with one of his pieces of equipment. So that's about where we're at with it. $43,000 left in our budget, so however we can carefully configure that out to get the best bang for our buck is what we're trying to do here. And I did talk with NRCS, and again, they're paying a flat rate. I don't think they can come up with any additional dollars, and they can only repay us for the work that we actually do. So if we get to, we get down to the last 10 acres, I would say we probably bag it on that last 10 acres for sure.
Okay. Because the 139 acres is actually more than really we ever talked about in the beginning, isn't it? Like supposed to be 102?
Yeah, I don't know. Everything I've got, and I looked through all that contract stuff, and it's coming up
Was it
about
all?
139 acres,
Was it?
yeah.
Okay.
And boy, taking that 10 acres out doesn't seem to sync up with anything we've heard in the past on that, so I don't know where that figure came from.
Okay.
So at this point, I feel like we kind of keep Chris working. I would probably recommend authorizing him for another week of work down there, but with just one piece of equipment. Try to get him finished up with what he's got that he's obligated to at this point, and get rid of that skid steer, and then just let both of those guys work as best they can between the 2 excavators.
Okay. So
And I
you're
think,
thinking the end of August then?
I'm thinking it will be about the end of August, yeah. You know, and it may be that we can get a lot of the cutting done ahead of time on that, but I think by the time he gets done spraying everything and doing all that final treatment, yeah, it's probably about the end of August.
Okay.
And I don't believe we're gonna have any remaining budget to handle any of those other 4 properties. So, and I've talked to a couple of those people. There were a couple of them that I could not find an actual signed contract. So maybe we're not technically on the hook with those folks. Nevertheless, we'll make contact with them and just kind of let them know things aren't looking very good for this year. If we feel like that's the appropriate thing at this point. It looks like it to me, because I just don't see how we're coming up with
I don't see
additional.
having the money to do anything,
Yeah.
if we even get this one done.
I'd rather just be
And
honest
it's-
with those folks and tell them, you know, hey, we've run into problems, and let them know ahead of time. And again, 2 of them already have. One of them was very understanding. Mike Preston, and you all know him. He's pretty understanding about that kind of stuff. Gina Montoya, not so much so. She really wants her project done. But it is what it is. So we'll you know, try to give them the best letdown we possibly can. It's about the best we can do.
Okay. Question?
I do feel good. You know, I will feel a lot better if we get that $42,000 back, because we put a lot of effort into trying to come up with the documentation and try to get that put together. And, you know, I mean, what can you do but try? But it was a lot of effort, and I really hope we get that. That would make me feel a lot better anyway. Other than that, I guess that kind of concludes my report.
That's plenty.
Okay. All right. Well,
Thanks, James.
we'll keep you in the loop and try to do the best we can.
All right, thank you, sir.
Thank you all.
Travis, we're gonna talk about a PAB.
So this is, should be pretty short and simple. We got notified of an expiring PAB, private activity bond, that was dedicated to the sleeping ute,
Apartment.
It was
apartments.
Sleeping ute apartments. It was
Yeah.
originally to the fish pond, right?
Correct. And so it was going to go to the fish pond. The fish pond apparently sold the property to another company. Again, the PAB of $2,050,279 is set to expire by December. Had some phone conversations, Zoom meetings with Mr. Bales, and he indicated that there's 3 potential solutions, 2 of which I don't think we're going to be able to meet. The first one is reallocate the funds to another local project, but that project has to be completed by the end of the year, and we're not finding anything. The second would be identify other projects in surrounding counties and transfer it to the PAB funds to that jurisdiction. Again, we don't know of any other projects. And then the last one would transfer the remaining funds to CHAPA, and they can use those funds throughout the state for other projects. But in any regard, we'll have to have a new resolution completed and forwarded on so that either CHAPA can allocate those funds elsewhere.
So it sounds like the best thing is just to give them back to CHAPA.
Yeah.
I mean, we don't, yeah, there's options, but 1 and 2 don't really apply. Okay. All right, very good. All right. well,
Travis, what date are we looking for that resolution?
Well,
I mean, I see this letter went out. Are we looking at a final cap date? I just don't want to miss
Sure, it expires in December.
December.
So,
So we would basically have to have a resolution before
before
December.
December, correct.
Okay. So it probably makes sense to give
Probably.
these guys a chance to possibly do something if they're going to do something, and then, you know, certainly I'll put a tickler in my calendar for mid-November, and we can pick it up again then.
Okay. All right, we have come to the end of our agenda, and we are adjourned. Thank you all.